So let's go over some of the tools that you'll need for this install. First, we're going to need a set of needle nose pliers to be able to reach through the runners on the intake manifold to reach the hose clamps. We've got a ratchet, an extension, and a 12mm socket to unbolt the factory coolant reservoir and to bolt the new Killer Bee Motorsport back into place. And then for the hose barb that screws into the top of the Killer Bee Motorsport part, you're going to need a 1/2-inch combination wrench. Of course, you'll want to have gloves and safety glasses. It will also benefit you if you have access to a set of hose pliers to clamp the hose shut when you disconnect the lower hose. And you're also going to want some shop rags and perhaps some kind of a pan to catch any extra coolant that might come out. Before we get to the install, I'd like to go over a couple important parts. The barb that you'll receive comes with pre-applied thread sealant. When you place the barb into the threaded portion of the coolant reservoir, you're going to want to make sure that the threads don't protrude past the smooth section on the inside. This is going to interfere with proper application of your radiator cap. The other important thing to note is once the barb is threaded in, we want to make sure that that top side of the hex is parallel to the top side of the mounting location. All right, so start out by pulling these hoses out of the factory keepers. We're going to go ahead and loosen all of the factory clamps. Now that the clamps are loosened, we're going to take the bolts out and the nut on the bottom flange. Now that all the clamps are loose and the bolts and nut are out, we can go ahead and disconnect the lower hose. Make sure you have your pan and your rags handy. Now that we've got the OEM tank out of the way, you're going to need to trim some off of this lower hose in order to get the new Killer Bee part to fit. If you do a dry run and place the tank in place, you're going to see about how far you need to trim off of the hose. It ends up working out to about 1.5 inches, so we'll do that now. Now that we've got the lower hose connected, we're going to go ahead and tighten down the bolts and reconnect the other OEM hoses. The small hose is going to connect to the top barb, and the larger hose is going to go to the bottom barb. And then finally, the rear hose is going to connect to the rear barb. Now that your hoses are all connected, we're going to go ahead and move the OEM clamps into position. Now that all the hoses are reconnected, you're going to want to go ahead and top it off with some coolant, and then we can put the cap on. And that completes the install.